Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing female named Addison. Addison has been a classroom library and consulting educator for nearly 20 years with a master's degree in music composition. They decided to get a second master's in digital storytelling, and it was during that stint when Addison came to accept that they are a transgender person. With that new information, Addison decided to focus on modern gender theory as a way of understanding themselves. She now combines their teaching experience, research skills, and personal story to help others understand LGBTQ issues, especially transgender issues. Addison is here to talk about all the things LGBTQ and is an open book in order to bring awareness to this community. Welcome, Addison.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with us and invite us into your journey and everything that you've been through over the last the course of your life and the journey that you've been on. I know that you are a busy individual, so I so appreciate this. How has your Thursday morning been?
Hectic getting ready for this. I had to rearrange my studio for streaming instead of recording, so that was a little interesting. And
then I love your background. What city is that?
That's Indianapolis.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm from the general Indy area. Well, actually, I'm originally from West Virginia, but now I live in the Indy area. And if you can hear any crackling, that's actually the snowstorm outside that's rattling all the windows in the house.
Yes, I could hear it. I actually thought maybe it was a little chihuahua prancing around on your floor.
No, that's it's I have the windows sealed in this room to keep out the lights to use it as a video studio, and the wind is blowing so hard it's actually pushing on the insulation and stuff that I have stuffed in the windows.
No kidding.
Yeah, I need to do something about that.
Well, I can hear you perfectly, so everything's all good. Listen, I'd like to just kind of hand the floor off to you, allow you to be able to kind of talk about your journey, your life, the challenges that you've gone through, and how you were kind of able to overcome those challenges and level up, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. Well, I think given the title of the show, one of the things I should talk about is coming to terms with my gender identity. Mm-hmm. I always knew that I just didn't like other men when I was growing up and stuff. I never felt like one of the boys. And most of my friends were women or women. And then, grew up, did the man thing for most of my life, and never felt quite right. I never thought of myself as a woman, but I knew, I just, I didn't like being a man. And then I had a child, got divorced later, and then I started dating someone who was questioning her sexuality at the time. And we stayed together for a while, and then we broke up, and we stayed good friends. And she started dating somebody who identified as genderqueer, and that was a term I had never actually heard before. Yeah. It's a newer term. It's not in the common lexicon. So it's like, okay, what's this all about? And I read it some more, and then I read another page, And then I did another search, read another page. By the end of like, I have ADHD, so I did a kind of hyper focus thing on this. And after about 8 hours, I just went, oh crap, that's me. And
really?
yeah, language is powerful. People don't realize the power of language.
Wait a minute. So your ex-girlfriend's partner,
yes,
is what opened you up to this?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. My ex and I, actually that ex and I, we don't talk anymore. That's the only ex that I have that I don't talk to anymore. Which is, I guess weird for people. But my ex-wife and all my other ex-girlfriends, we talk fine. Anyway, sorry, ADHD, going on a tangent. I'm off my meds because of something I might talk about later. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, when she started dating this genderqueer person, I was curious and I read up on it and I realized that's me. And it made sense. Because I'd always been interested in it. Like my ex-wife is a psychologist, and I've always been interested in psychology, and because of her and on my volition, I've taken almost every psychological battery you can think of. I was her guinea pig for a while, and those tests always came back like I had one that actually said that I was a feminized male, and what the heck does that mean? And then I heard this term finally, and I came to realize that's what it was trying to tell me. And I call the learning about genderqueer, learning about non-binary identities, the first layer on the onion of denial. And once I got that out of the way, everything else, it's like a lot of other things fell off of out of my psyche, and I broke through it and realized that I did want to transition. I did not like being a man. I am a non-binary person, but I'm a trans feminine non-binary person. So I do present female, even though in my heart of hearts, I'm an indie. Yeah, that's was the beginning of it. And since then, coming out to family, coming out at work, that took me a while. Yeah, it took me a good 4 years after figuring myself out before I realized I needed to socially transition. And it's when I changed my name and asked people, told people my proper pronouns are they, them, or she, her. And there was always some resistance because of our culture. Right. And eventually I got to this point where I won a grant for gender confirmation surgery. I started HRT. My employer actually does cover my day job does allow gender confirmation procedures through our insurance. Not every employer does. Wow. And even if the insurance company says, hey, it's available, if your employer says, yeah, we're not paying for that, you have no coverage, so you're on your own. That's one of the things that we're fighting against is medical discrimination.
Yeah. So how old were you? 20s, 30s, 40s?
I was early 40s when I finally figured myself out. Wow. I'm 51 now.
You look great. You're 51?
Yeah, thanks. It's a genetic disorder.
And what made you go red? Are you naturally light or red or?
I'm naturally light. No. People always tell me, don't cover your gray. Your gray is gorgeous. Like, I'm not covering my gray. I'm covering the brown. Gray just gets in the way. Yeah. No, I have light brown hair naturally. Yeah. But HRT does some weird things. In addition to allow me to grow breasts and, changing the texture of my skin and other things, it changed the color of my eyes. And I went from blue to green eyes. And I was looking in the mirror, it's like, I have green eyes now. I'm going red. And there you go.
Yes. You know what's so crazy about this is I am literally obsessed with red hair, green eyes my whole life. I just see it's just such a gorgeous combination.
Yeah.
And my parents came and visited me like last month or something down here in Florida. And I took out my old box of memories. I thought it'd be kind of cool to we haven't gone through it for freaking probably them ever. I go through it every couple of years. But anyways, I opened it up. I have 3 Barbies and a little miniature Cabbage Patch, all red hair, green eyes that I saved. Isn't that so funny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a great combination. Well, it looks great on you.
Thank you.
I love it. So what I kind of like to unbox is the most obvious question is, what does it mean to be transgender? I feel like there's just so many people that still don't even know what that even is.
Yeah, that's even in, well, okay, the basic definition is anyone who knows themselves to be a gender that society in general would not call them is transgender. So if you know in your heart of hearts that you are a woman, even though your shell is male, you're transgender, and vice versa. Or anybody who technically anybody who is non-binary would be considered transgender in the most broad sense, because they know their gender to be a non-binary gender. Well, most of society will say, "Are you a man or a woman?" They're like, "Yes," or "No," or "What do you mean?" So there's all kinds of ways to be an NB. But the problem we have is that most people believe in a gender binary. If there are men, there's women, and there's nothing else. And men act a certain way and women act a certain way, and you have to follow these rules. But the thing is, those rules are actually society-based. It's like the idea that men's brains and women's brains are inherently different is wrong. Men's brains and women's brains are actually are indistinguishable in most ways. There are a few little circuits in the brain, like 6 very small areas that are gender differentiated. And from this, we believe that gender identity, sexual orientation, and other such things are derived from. It's just your brain structure. So there is evidence, empirical evidence out there, such as twin studies. If like twins separated at birth, if one's trans, the other one's probably trans also. So there's apparently a genetic component. There are fMRI studies where they look at the brains of people in with magnetic resonance in live action, and they find that transgender people's brains react in ways more similar to the gender to which they identify. So you put a trans man in an fMRI, you'll see that his brain will light up like a cisgender man's brain, or more similar to that than to a cisgender woman's brain.
Wow.
There's even dissection, like a postmortem dissection of the brain. There's a few parts that, and they're very small. This whole idea men have more this kind of matter and women have this kind of that's not true. There's some very small areas of the brain that do help define you in terms of gender. And when they open up somebody's brain after death and they cut them apart, they see that a cisgender man's brain, that small part is built like the brain of a man, of a cisgender man. So sometimes, and they're not sure why, there's multiple avenues apparently this can happen. The parts of the brain that are wired for gender do not match the parts of the brain the parts of the body, basically. And that's not, like I said, there's multiple ways of getting there.
Yeah.
And it also has to do with psychology and sociology and a lot of other things. and even just your own knowledge. Like I said, I never figured myself out until I knew that non-binary identities was a thing.
Got it. Yeah.
So it's it's a complicated matter, but in the broadest sense, if you know yourself to be something that everybody else wants to say that you're not, you're trans.
Got it. Did you say that it it has been linked to genetics? Did you say that?
Yeah, there have been a couple of studies done.
Mhm. I was watching I'm sorry, I was watching something. I don't know if it was Dr. Phil, but some sort of show, and it was a brother sister, and not twins, just brother sister. And the brother was was going towards or is more feminine, and the daughter was trans male, like altered or whatever. And they were kind of joking. I don't know which it was, but they were kind of joking that like their parents birthed both of them wrong. Because they were the opposite, they felt the opposite gender, you know? So that's interesting. I don't remember where that was, but I've never heard that before. And now that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's yeah, there's been like I said, there's been twin studies.
Yeah.
One twin is trans, the other one's going to be either trans or non-binary or something most of the time, not always.
Yeah.
Actually, that same ex-girlfriend had a transgender brother. They were born semi-identical twins, and he transitioned. He is a trans man, so someone who presents as male is a trans man, someone who presents as female is a trans woman.
Yeah.
So your question about what to call the brother and sister. So
Thank you.
and I'm trying to remember. There's another study that showed that some trans women, not all, but some trans women, people make a big deal about the Y chromosome being what makes you a man. That's actually not true. The Y chromosome has like one gene that sparks the masculinization process.
Okay.
And all the other genes that are in charge of masculinization are actually on other genes. And what one researcher found was that there are genes that are designed to masculinize the brain, and in some trans women, they're not there. They just don't have the genetic coding to masculinize their brain, so their brain maintained a feminine form from the fetal stage. So that's why they ended up being transgender women.
Wow.
So that's, I mean, and that's not, doesn't apply to all transgender.
Yeah. Of course, I
One
get
way
it.
it happens,
Yeah.
but there are multiple ways of being transgender or getting there.
Yeah. So one of the main just topics in general, and I'm going to be speaking for like mass population because I feel like I am in that genre, but really the only conversations that I hear in general out in public is the bathroom story. What other social, cultural, political obstacles are transgender people facing that we're just kind of like oblivious to?
Oh, well, right now, multiple state legislatures are basically trying to legislate us out of existence. There are bathroom bills, yes. There are keeping trans kids out of sports. And we're talking about people that haven't even gone through puberty yet. So, or they're, they don't, or they're like very early in puberty, or sometimes it's people who have actually been on puberty blockers for a while. So the whole idea that they have a biological, like, especially for trans girls, born male and presenting and know themselves to be women or girls. There's a really big deal being made that, oh, you can never let them grow, never let them compete in sports with other girls because they have a biological advantage, but not if not if they're too young to have ever gone through puberty. Boys and
Yeah.
girls are basically the same until puberty hits. If
Yeah.
they've been on puberty blockers, they've never developed male masculine. They've never been seriously masculinized. So, and also even for older people, once you've been on HRT for a while, hormone replacement therapy, that biological advantage goes away. It really, I mean,
Wow. Okay.
I used to wear a 40 regular jacket before I
Yeah.
transitioned. Now I'm 38 regulars look big on me because I've lost so
Wow.
much muscle mass in my arms and shoulders and everywhere actually. Um, so someone who has been on HRT, like the swimmer at Penn, she's been on HRT for 2.5 years. She doesn't have a muscular advantage over over cisgender women anymore. I mean, it's just that's one of the things that have been shown
Yeah.
that and people want to make a big deal out of this when it's not really. It's just kids wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
And they're trying to prevent kids from having fun. They're trying to prevent kids from actually. There are several places where it's being they're making it illegal for a parent to get their trans kids medical help. Now they're trying to outlaw.
Medical help, like psychologically.
No, like puberty blockers.
Got it.
For a trans person to go through puberty if you're very strong, have a very strong gender dysphoria already, and then
Yeah.
you go through puberty as
As the
the
wrong gender.
wrong gender, many it makes people very upset and depressed and anxious, and so a lot of parents who love trans kids, very accepting parents, they will ask their doctors to put the kids on puberty blockers until they can figure themselves out later. And if they want to keep with it, they can medically transition later, or if they decide actually no, I want to keep my body the way it is, they go off the puberty blockers and go through puberty regularly, and that's very beneficial to a trans kid. But so that way they can make the choice. They know where they're going. They're not subjected to, their body changing in ways they don't want it to change.
Yeah.
And they're trying to outlaw that.
Wow.
They're
I have
trying
a,
to.
I have a question. And if you don't know the answer, that's fine. It just popped in while you're saying this. So my son is 6'2". If for instance, right, this is not a thing, but if for instance, he was getting these feelings, he's 17, but he was getting these feelings at maybe 15. At 15, he was probably a foot and a half shorter. And, he hadn't really gone through his stuff yet. So if someone like that had gone on the blockers that you're talking about, and then changed their mind, gone off, would my son still reach that 6'2", or does it kind of stint the growth?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would think that once masculinization starts, like adult masculinization starts, yes, there would still be a growth spurt. I don't know if it would be
I guess we'd never know,
the
right?
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd have to do studies on that, and conservative legislatures are trying to make sure that never happens.
Yeah. Is there rules set in place right now for an age on that? Like what the age is
Yes,
to be able to do that?
yeah,
Wow.
you can't. You can't. You can go on puberty blockers pre-puberty, obviously, but you can't go on HRT until you're older. And I think it depends on the state. Some places it's 14. Some places it's 16 before you can start HRT. Some places are trying to make it illegal up to like 21 or ever. So they're basically trying to force trans people out of their states, or
Yeah.
or they want them to commit suicide, because that's obviously what happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, so uh, It's
So
one of those. Yeah.
so
Sorry.
that's okay. My fiance has a trans son.
Mhm.
He's 17. And one of the things that he is very self-conscious about at this point is his hips. He just started the blockers, I believe
Mhm.
you're talking about. But he already has hips.
Yeah.
Is that, you kind of said like you've lost a few inches, all around as far as your masculinity. That can't do anything for the bone structure, right? Like if his,
No.
yeah,
Yeah, it can change. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, can change muscle mass. It can change fat distribution.
got,
So
wow.
he's
Okay.
yeah, once he is well, that's why I grew. That's why I grew up. That's why
Yes.
I actually have hips now, even though I started HRT at 47, and still um, I have less fat and more mass. Like men usually grow their fat up here.
Yeah.
I started putting it on over here, so I have hips now and breasts, and
Wow.
my face, the shape of my face changed also because our face shape is actually has a lot to do with fat distribution. So when you're on HRT for a more masculine, um, it will make the jawline, the fat will go away from the jawline so much, so he'll get a much sharper jawline once he's on testosterone,
Yeah.
and some of the more feminine facial features will go away. My chin softened, my jawline softened, my eyes got wider because there's actually fat pockets around the eyes and more in males than in females. So
Yeah.
my eyes opened up, so they look bigger than they used to.
Wow.
Um, yeah, there's lots of changes that happens on HRT. So he will masculinize some of the fat around his hips will redistribute, but
Okay.
the bone structure is the bone structure, and
Yeah.
he apparently started puberty, and like you know puberty does change the bone structure,
Okay.
and since he's went through a female puberty, it his hips widened and spread naturally, so there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah. So
But
he doesn't have large breasts, but he's 17, so he does have some. Will that possibly kind of go down a little? He has
no,
little ones. Okay.
I doubt it.
Okay.
um yeah,
They'll have
that's
to have
something, the
surgery.
only thing you can really do about breasts is top surgery.
Top
um
surgery, yeah. That's what
yeah.
he's, yeah. That's what, I'm sure you know that. That's what they